specific strength movements for the hammer throw. So when I'm talking specific strength, what am I talking about? You're going to have to answer, otherwise I'm just going to stand here awkwardly in the front of you. So what specific strength, what are we talking about?
Rotational strength.
Can be, yeah. But we're talking about specific movements that mimic portions of the throw. Okay, so rotational strength is going to be a huge part of that, right? Because any type of throwing, including the javelin, is going to have a massive amount or a big necessity for rotational strength, right? So specific strength, we're going to mimic specific movements of the throw and trying to train your body to be able to withstand the forces that the implement's going to put on your body, and also be able to apply more power out of that movement, okay? And the big thing about this is the hammer is going to apply forces, and most throws will, but the hammer really does on every possible angle you can imagine, right? Okay, so I want everybody to understand that she just had an hour-long demo doing all these exercises in this hot room, so I'm gonna try to pace myself here so she's not collapsed on the floor when we're done, okay? So, in the hammer throw, where are forces being applied to your body?
For those that were at Hammer
For those
today.
that were at hammer. And even if you weren't hammered, just throw the Hail Mary there and throw something out if you want. Where are forces being applied to your body?
In front of you.
Yep. Okay. Oh, yes. So, we'll kind of go into a little bit more specific with that so we can see it, okay? So, I promise I won't pull as hard this time. Okay, so, Kara's throwing the hammer. Kara is going at a high rate of speed. This hammer is pulling force away from her body, right? I am the force being applied to the hammer. So, in this particular position, where is Kara having force applied to her body? Not where she's trying to hold the throw, but where is the hammer pulling on her?
Back and legs.
Ooh, all right. Back and legs, right? So let's be more specific. Hips, quads, shoulders,
Glutes.
glutes, okay? Posture, that whole posterior chain, her back, right? So the hammer is pulling against her. Okay, so now, we need a safe word. I can just stop, okay? All right. So now she's gone through her turn. The hammer, she's caught the hammer is pulling here. Still getting the same force, right? To her, but do you see how the hips are rotated a little bit differently? The shoulders are still here. So where else are we going to add to this, right? What else is really coming into play here? Core. That's a safe answer in just about any throw. You can answer core with anything. Because we're trying to keep the hammer rotating around, right? So she's got to be able to hold that force away from her body at an angle to her side. Also, what connects the thighs, hips, and glutes to the back?
Spine.
Huh?
Spine.
Yes. What did you just say last time? What's the right answer every time? Core, right? What is this? Core, right? Right in here. This is connecting her upper body and her lower body. So we've got to be able, we can have the strongest shoulders in the world and be able to squat 900 pounds. But if we do not have, Ryan Whiting always says you want a thick core, okay? You want to feel like your abdominal wall is about that thick. We've got to be able to withstand force, pulling our shoulders, twisting our shoulders, and also applying force between our hips and our shoulders, okay? And no, we're not talking about just doing crunches and back extensions, okay? We're going to run through some really specific, easy movements that can help you get ready to throw the hammer and be able to really withstand the force that you're going to be putting on the ball if you want to throw far. Okay? And the nice thing about what we're going to go through back here, does this look like a big complex setup with racks and bars and plates and machines? I hope the answer is no. Okay? So, we are going to go through this assortment of things here on the ground and give you some examples of what we can do. The big takeaway from all this, Olympic weightlifting and throwing is kind of the steak and potatoes, right? That's the main meal, right? What we are going to discuss here today is more salt and pepper. We're just putting a little bit of seasoning on your training. This is not meant to take the place of your Olympic lifting. This is not meant to take the place of your throwing. And in some cases, if you have limited facilities, this may be all you have access to. This may be the only thing that you can do based on you're doing other sports, you don't have access to your high school weight room, you live 30 miles from town and you can't get in and lift. But if we can find a medicine ball, a rubber band, a plate, kettlebell, something, you can still work on your technique because these movements are specific to the hammer throw. It's going to help your technique, but it's also going to be able to help withstand that force and create more force on the hammer. Okay? So,
The bar?
let's do bars first. We'll go harder to easier. Okay. So, for those of you that were at Hammer today, please feel free to mumble when I ask questions. For those of you that weren't at Hammer, if you just want to throw the guess out and yell core, that's fine. Okay, so in the hammer, go ahead and get your own position there. Just like right here. What position is this in the hammer that we were going through with our positions today? 1, okay? This is strong, bent legs, strong hips, great posture, relaxed arms. Those are all things that we're going to talk about in the hammer throw, okay? So, go ahead. It's our turn, right? Okay, now, is that bar going to make it tougher or easier to keep the shoulders under control and keep our balance? Easier? Harder, right? Because the weight is now out away from my body and I have to counteract the momentum of the bar. So she's having to really, really work her core to keep her shoulders in posture from going all over the place. That bar wants to keep rotating on its own. She's having to step and hold that position and keep things under control. And it's helping her with her technique to be able to keep her posture and her footwork. Is she going fast? No, she's smooth and under control. All these motions, we want to be really technically correct. We want to use relatively light weight and not make this a strenuous, draining activity, okay? Now, this is another variation we can go behind. So, what this is going to do, because it's under her hips, she's going to be forced to sit a little bit more and be really disciplined with her posture, okay? This is going to put a little bit more emphasis on the lower body, but it's also going to engage the core because her shoulders are still going to want to rotate. Good. Just another variation of the same idea, but it's going to work so when the bar's out in front of us, it's going to want to pull us down. We've got to be able to extend the hips and stay tall. When it's behind us, it's going to really emphasize strong hips and strong legs and being disciplined as we go through the turns, okay? I feel like she's on like a work release right now. Okay. Trap bar. Who has access to a trap bar at their high school gym or the weight rooms they're working out at? Okay, great. Different piece of equipment, same concept. But now she's out here having to control that weight, wanting to move on its own. Okay, again, she's keeping her shoulders above her hips. She's not breaking, she's not twisting all over the place because she's really, really tight right here. And she's really strong in her hips and her feet to put pressure into the ground and keep things under control. Okay, just a little different variation, okay? So now, in the hammer throw.
The legs are burning.
Yes.
This is great.
We're almost there. We're on the home stretch. I promise. I promise. Ice cream. I'll get you ice cream. Okay. In the hammer throw, do we ever want to jump off the ground? In the hammer throw?
No.
No. But when we're releasing the hammer, do we want to drive and extend up through the release here? Right? So basically, if I'm here, I'm fully extended. I just haven't left the ground, right? So we can work on, by jumping, again, we don't want to jump in the hammer, okay? But we want to be able to be here and extend up through the release. She's going to keep her posture straight back, all the force going back into her hips, and she's controlling the drop. She's not collapsing down here, okay? She's maintaining that posture, Her shoulders are right above her between her knees and her hips, and she's under control back up. She's not breaking, okay? She's under control, same as the hammer, right? Stepping forward, not breaking, and coming up through that release motion, okay? Pick one, pick one. Okay. Everybody's over here, so. All right, so in the hammer, when the ball's down at 0 at the low point, where's the hammer trying to pull me?
Forward.
Straight out, right? The force of the hammer is pulling directly away from my body. So it's trying to pull me down and forward, isn't it? Right? So we want to counteract that and be able to hold that position with our back, our hips, and our posture. Go ahead. Right? Is she bending her back? Is she rounding her back when she does this? No. Where's she loading all the weight as she goes back? Right into her hips. Okay, so she's working on maintaining that posture and generating that force into her hips. Where do you think the highest amount of force is coming in this movement? Where do you think that kettlebell is pulling the hardest on her body? Let me rephrase that. When in the movement, great answer. When in the movement do you think that kettlebell is producing its highest amount of force? Right at the low point, right? Because she's pushed it down and she's trying to change the direction on the kettlebell. Kettlebell wants to go right back there. And she is driving her hips and maintaining that force. Same thing with the hammer, right? When I come in through that low point, the hammer's trying to pull my face into the concrete. I'm trying to withstand that and go against that. So that bottom of the swing is mimicking when that ball's coming down through 0, being able to have that strength in the hips and the back to be able to withstand that. Now, we want to add a little bit more to it. This is just a straight line movement, right? I don't have any rotational component. If she goes to a one-hand swing, she now has the same force going on her hips and her back, but now she's got to control her body wanting to rotate. She has to keep her core tight and keep that going at the same line. Okay? Same thing as the hammer. We're trying to control rotation against the hammer. So we can make that a little bit more complex and go one hand. Now, is this something we want to go really, really heavy with? No. What's going to happen?
Gonna hurt your lower back.
You're going to hurt your lower back. And trust me, over COVID, I had 3 kettlebells in my house. That was my only way to work out, and I thought the greatest idea in the world was to pick up the 70-pound kettlebell and do hard swings. The next day, I swear somebody stabbed me in my hamstrings with swords. Okay? Again, is this meant to be strength training, high intensity work? No, this is meant to complement what you're doing in the throw and be a relatively low intensity exercise. There are times when we want it to be a little bit higher intensity, but where you guys are in your hammer development, being relatively new to it, we're just trying to learn how to move and how to be disciplined in those positions, okay? So this doesn't need to be the heaviest kettlebell. You could probably get a really productive workout with just a 5-pound or a 10-pound kettlebell doing that, okay? It's gonna give you some technical work and it's gonna be able to strengthen you out, okay? So let's talk a little bit more rotational. Everything we've been doing has been more linear, hips, back, straight line. Let's talk about rotational forces, right? Because that hammer is trying to rotate around our body and we need to control that rotation, okay? So this mimicking the push of the hammer. Where do you think the hardest work, when? Core. When do you think Kara is working her hardest on that movement? When she's in the back, stopping it and pushing. Are her feet, well, that's a terrible time for me to say her feet flopping all over the place.
I'm a little.
Okay. Okay, putting pressure into the ground. She's controlling that. She's not wobbling all over the place. So her hips and legs are putting force into the ground and absorbing that force and pushing it back in. What happens when we go through our turn and our right or left foot comes down? The hammer, we're here ahead of it. What do we have to do to get that hammer back ahead of us? Push through. Okay? So again, we're getting technical work, but we're also working. You are a trooper. I feel like we're in Tucson.
This isn't close to Tucson. Come on, be real. This is nice.
So now we can vary this and get a little bit more intensity on it by bringing the arms in close and put it more of just a straight core exercise. But again, we want to stop the movement and get it going back the other direction as soon as possible. You are going to get a gold star.
Thanks.
Okay, but we're keeping the feet plugged into the ground. We're not throwing ourselves off balance with our feet shuffling all over the place. Same thing in the hammer. Something as simple as doing our winds. We want to get the rotation of our shoulders going, stabilize our core, and keep our feet in contact with the ground. Okay? Okay, so now we've talked about our positions through the turns. We've gotten rotational. We've talked about strengthening up our back and our hips. What do we do towards the end of a throw?
Release.
We throw it. That's right up there with core. What do we do at the end of a throw? We throw it. Yeah, so we want to go through a release motion, right? Okay, so 4K shot. Everybody should have those at their high school. I doubt that any of your state federations are allowing rocks that happen to be 8.8 pounds to be used in track meets, so you should be able to find one of these pretty easy, right? Or a 12-pounder, sorry gentlemen. So, is that how we release a hammer?
No.
No.
Some of you tried that today. We tried to coach it out of you, okay? But what about that movement is similar to how we're releasing the hammer?
Throwing the arms up.
Yeah, we're
Moving away.
extending our hips, we're extending our upper body with long arms up through the release of the hammer. So again, it's a specific movement or a characteristic of that movement we're trying to train. Is she using a super heavy shot that she's slow and her back is rounding and she's all out of position? No, we're going to use a weight where you can have great positions and apply speed and force. This is not how heavy can I go, this is how quickly I can move, how much force I can apply with good technique. Okay? Is there anything out here that looks especially heavy? No, that's the point. This is about quality. This isn't about doing a second weightlifting session with extra stuff. We're trying to apply force. We're trying to have good technique. We're not trying to see how heavy we can go. Okay, we don't throw slow. We don't throw with poor technique. Okay? So, more specific, right? We've come into our last turn. We've caught the hammer in a great position. Take it away, Karen. Okay, same thing. Good posture, extending up through the release, hips and shoulders, chest turning into the release. Now, are we going to do, take a breather for a second, I'll talk really slow. Are we going to do just right side over and over and over with every rotational movement, whether it's the bar turns, the plate twists, or these? Why not? Okay, if I'm constantly working one side of my body, I'm not working the other, what's going to happen? What's that?
You're
You're
gonna
going
have
to look funny and be
issues.
asymmetrical, but what's that? No.
So you're gonna have a huge bicep over here and a tiny over here.
I've never had a huge bicep on either side, so I don't know how that works for everybody else. No, but think about this, right? If one side of our body is overdeveloped and tight and twisting, okay, what's that going to do to the side that's not getting any work? What happens if you sleep funny on your side? What happens when you wake up? It hurts, right? Because you're applying all this force on one half of your body. Your body's twisting and turning and getting all this tension. We've got to be able to have balance. The muscles on the left side of your body have to be just as strong as the muscles on the right side of your body to be able, not one, just to stay healthy, but two, to maintain balance in every possible angle you can be in. So with these really simple movements, the slow turns with the bar, the plate twists, go ahead and do one left-handed release.
Oh, no.
It happens every time. But are these relatively simple movements that you can do relatively well with your offside? Yes. I'd be willing to bet, I know I do on both sides, I'd be willing to bet at least $20 that Coach Dumble has, they're basic movements. It's not like you're sitting there trying to figure out how to do it. You're pushing through and extending. It makes you a better athlete because in your head you have to coach yourself how to do something with your offhand. And it's going to help you relate that better to your dominant side, but it's going to balance you out. It's going to help keep your hips healthy. It's going to help keep your shoulders healthy. It's going to help keep your back healthy because your entire 360 degrees of your body has been trained. So you're never going to be in a weak position. Okay, you're going to be able to apply force out of those pretty well. Okay, it's just going to make you a better athlete. It's going to make you more coordinated, make you more powerful, faster, all things we want as athletes, and certainly what we want as coaches. Okay, all right, relatively easy stuff now. So, anybody know where they can find some bands about about that size?
Amazon.
Amazon, great. I'm not recommending you try to get one from your high school strength coach when they're not looking, but that's how my kettlebells ended up at my house over COVID. But not from my high school strength coach, but again, simple pieces of equipment here. Again, what are we trying to mimic? The ball going through that zero position, but also when the ball's up at the high point, we're still trying to have strong hips and a strong back. Okay? How many, you want to try them in the front, just for kicks? Okay. Go ahead. So the hammer's out in front, right? So we want to apply a little bit of force to the front of our bodies. It's going to be, again, even more specific to that, okay? But again, she's putting the force into her hips. She's keeping her posture upright. She's not bending down here, okay? Everything we want to see in a hammer throw, okay? So now, where can we incorporate these into our throwing and our training? Any ideas? Anyone?
Warm up.
Huh?
Warm up.
Warm up. Band exercises, throws are great for warm up because it does two things, at least in my opinion, really well. It gets you physically prepared for that movement at a relatively low intensity, so you're kind of just getting loose. You're not just getting right in the circle and just wailing on things. Okay? And it's a good technical warm up. You're reinforcing good positions. You're telling yourself what you're trying to feel without having what I like to refer to as a brain eraser in your hand. Who does drills really well and the second you get in the circle to try to do the same? Yeah, right? It happens. So you're not worried about how far it's going to go. You're worried about the quality of the movement. And you need to take that and bring it into the circle and try to hit those same positions and feel those same things. Okay? Every movement here, whether it's used with the shot or the weight or the plates, long, relaxed arms, great posture, nice and strong. But this can be a part of a warm-up. This can be at the end of your practice. I tend to use the banded stuff and the plate twist as a little bit of a warm-up in the fall, and I'll use the banded stuff throughout the year. But at the end of a practice, right, where do we want the focus of quality to be in a throwing session?
Where do we want it, or where does it happen?
No, where do we want the best repetitions and the quality in a throwing session?
At the end.
The middle.
Well, no, I'll ask this better. We want the quality to be with the throwing, right? We don't want to go out and just kill ourselves doing all these specific movements for a half hour and then go try to throw the hammer and get 5 repetitions in, and then technique starts breaking down, the ball starts dragging, you know what I mean? We want the quality to be within that throwing practice. So what I'll do, like I said, the banded stuff, some light shots, some plate twists, we'll use that as a warm-up because it's relatively low intensity and it's going to help the technique and strength. But if we're going to be doing kettlebell stuff or one, oh shoot, do we do the kettlebell stuff? Shoot. These are great, PUDs or kettlebells. Okay, we're going to backtrack a little bit for a second. Mimicking the release motion. I'm getting too hot too, I'm forgetting things. Just give me one of each. 2-hand, backhand, forehand. Okay, great posture, holding it, coming through. Again, you're mimicking the throw, but you're not, okay? Long arms, nice and relaxed all the way through. Do that both sides. Front hand here, working right here, extending up through it, and with your dominant hand, pushing now, not pulling. Okay, again, she's turning her hips and her chest through, long arms, keeping it out in front of her. She's not dragging it behind her. Okay, so something like that, at the end of a practice, we may do 4 left-handed, 4 right-handed, and 4 on each side with 2 hands. Okay, we want to treat these specific exercises kind of like our power cleans, snatches, jerks, push press, okay, explosive movements. Okay, so we want to do I don't know, 3 to 4 sets, 4 to 6 reps. Now some of these at certain times of the year, you might, like with the banded stuff, do 4 by 10, but very light, very high quality movement. And anytime you've got an implement in your hand or you're trying to apply power, we want to be technically disciplined, but we want to move it for speed. Okay, this is not, again, this is not meant to be slow and heavy. Okay, we're trying to train our body specifically for the throw. Now there's gonna be times in the weight room where you might have, you know, loads on the bar that are gonna force you to go slower, but you're still trying to move it fast. That's not the case when we're out here. We want to be able to move well. We want to be able to accelerate anything that's coming out of our hands or anything we're trying to apply power to. It's really hot and it's really late. You guys are doing great. Okay? Dana must be trying to shoo some flies away. Does anybody have any questions? That's got to be Dana. That's the only person that would try to do something like that. Any questions at all? No? No? So does this seem like something you guys could go back, whether or not